which is the trend. It's where municipalities are heading. It's the kind of parcel out services. People get to control what it is they get charged by the amount of activity that they generate. So in my estimation, it's the fairest way. It does encourage recycling because I think, as we all know, the price of gas goes up. People, take the kind of steps that are necessary to make sure they economize. We think people will do the same thing here with recycling, which would be helpful on both ends. And hopefully it doesn't overburden any particular household. But it's not out of line with any other kind of feed generation activity that you would see. If you have a family of 3 students at Malden High School, they each play sport. In most communities, you're paying $600. Just to, well, I know, I mean, it's one kind of other fee-based kind of arrangement. Most communities are doing that in addition to charging for trash in some way, either the flat fee or pay-as-you-throw. But we think this is the fairest way to implement it.
Thank you very much for your time.
So thank you for your question. Good luck with the trip.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to limit it to one question because it is the second time around.
No problem. You made a comment, Mayor, that disturbed me a little bit ago. You stated that yourself and the other councilmen don't seem to have a concern with their job security. That worries me.
No, I didn't say that. I think everybody, I think what I said was the threat that somebody would vote against me because of the decision that I made, I wouldn't take as a threat. I mean, that's everybody's right. I put my record out to the public every 4 years. They get a right to decide whether or not they think I'm the right person to continue on this job. And I hear it all the time, and it's to be expected. And I think these people are experienced enough and mature enough, they can speak for themselves, but I think they feel the same way. If somebody says to me, well, election time's coming up, well, of course it is. And that's everybody's prerogative. If they think we're doing a lousy job, things aren't too good as they are now, then I should be voted out of office, and somebody else should be given a chance. And I think all these gentlemen feel the same way about their decisions. I don't make a decision based upon whether or not I think it's politically correct. I try to make every decision that I've made in the 13 years that I've made, and based upon what I think is in the best interest of the community overall. I'm not concerned about re-election. If I do my best and I were to lose, then so be it. That's the way the process is supposed to work.
It's supposed to work. Okay, thank you.
Back again, John Trojan. Who were the 2 people who were picked to hand out the tickets for the trash?
Nobody was picked yet. Right now, there's a compliance effort that will take place that'll be handled by existing personnel. If there's a need to hire additional personnel as a result of the level of non-compliance, then we'll take that issue up as we go along. But right now, no new positions have been added, nothing else has been created, nobody's being paid, just people that we now have on staff.
Another question is, since the city yards were sold to charter schools...
City yards haven't been sold to anybody. Hopefully, we will have identified an appropriate location for facilities there to be put into, but...
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, my name is Mike Knox. I have no relation to anybody in Malden. I took exception to a couple of things. The first thing was the political activist who said that we don't show up at City Hall. I call it City Hall because I'm over in Cambridge. So, and what I was wondering was why my alderman, I live on Adams Street, and I was wondering why my alderman didn't have a meeting with his constituents so we wouldn't have to go through some type of fiasco like we're having here tonight and putting you under the gun. If he had a meeting with his constituents, I'll ask him afterwards, but I'd be sure that probably 90% of them or more wouldn't agree with the program, and he could have maybe said, well, my constituents who are going to vote for me in the next election aren't happy with this, so I guess I'm going to have to disagree with what the other aldermen want to do here.
You want to hear from Council?
No, I'd like to ask him, and I'm sure he's a fine gentleman, I never met him, but I'd just like to know why there was no meeting with your constituents so we could avoid getting entangled here.
We got the budget at the end of May. We're required to pass that budget before July 1st. Now, we met numerous times up at City Hall, probably 3 nights a week. I didn't have a meeting in my ward. I happen to be in the City Council for the last 23 years. I was there in 1989 when we went from 160 firefighters down to 118. We closed 2 stations. We saw our police force go down from 120 to 100. We laid off some 50 teachers. We closed 2 middle schools. We had a real rough time of it. We had 400 people. This was a crowd tonight that was certainly disagreeable with us. But we also had 400 people back then that wanted to string us up. There was, at the time, decisions had to be made. We stood up, we made them, we made the cuts. Some of my best friends were laid off. I voted that way, I made the cuts. In this particular situation, I felt that there's no way we could cut any further. What the mayor, I don't know if he mentioned it or not, but when he got the budget, it was over 150 million. Our financial team cut $8 to $10 million in requests. So he actually was, we had almost 120 million that was committed that had to be part of the budget. So that left about 23 million, right? He had requests of 33 million. He cut 8 to 10 million, the financial team. That didn't leave the city council hardly anything to look at. We felt we would have decimated our services. I mean, when I first came into office, we had almost 60 people in the DPW. We got something like 41 people now. And back then, the streets weren't cleaned on a regular basis with street cleaners. I just felt as though, even if it meant people not voting for me, that I was making the right decision. And if I had had a neighborhood meeting, I knew what to expect. I know the people in my ward. My own wife was mad at me. She don't want to pay. I certainly respect it. You know, my wife said, I'm not sure she's going to vote for me. But I feel confident that I made the right vote for the right reasons.
I appreciate what you're saying, but my other point is, had you had a meeting, and all your constituents came to that meeting and told you, this is not what we want, you got to go back to the drawing board with the rest of the aldermen, come up with some other plan, and I hate to say cuts, because nobody wants to have cuts. But if you can't come up with another plan, and all your constituents don't want this, you represent us, am I correct?
Absolutely.
So 99% of us don't want this. If 99% of us don't want this, then isn't it your job to go back and tell the mayor and the rest of the aldermen, I have to vote no on this because my constituents don't want it? What the results are going to be, we'll have to figure something else out.
We looked at alternative revenue sources.
All right.
Right? They weren't. We looked at things like charging people for stickers for their cars. It's just another way of people paying more money. We looked at everything. I knew the people weren't going to like this. I didn't like it. The easy vote would have been for me to just vote against it, believe me.
Well, maybe you should have done that.
Well, I don't think so.
Why not? If 99%
Because
of the people you represent don't want it, why would you go in there and say, I want it, I want it, you?
I don't think that the city...
We don't know what's good for us?
$5 million.
Okay. Thanks for your time.
To cut $5 million from $25 million, it would be devastating.